Don't forget to give it. Good evening, I'm Bill Maley, your Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'd like to welcome you all here to the June 8th, 2016 meeting of the Town Board. And I welcome you whether you're here in the auditorium with us live, or if you're watching us at home on our cable access channel 12, or streaming on our dedicated YouTube live stream channel. We welcome you here, and we also want to give you the opportunity to participate. We will shortly be going to the open forum where everyone will have an opportunity to participate in the meeting. But first I want to just take care of a couple housekeeping matters. In case of an emergency, you'll hear the town hall alarm system. Please leave the building immediately, either by the door to my right, turn right, go down the stairs, and out the rear door of Town Hall and move away from the building, or you can go out either of the two rear entrances here in the auditorium, through the lobby, out the front door, and down the front steps, and again, move away from Town Hall. If you are watching on Cable Access 12 and you're watching our live broadcast, if you experience technical difficulties with the audio or the video, please call Time Warner Cable at 756-5000. That's 756-5000 for technical difficulties with the transmission of the live broadcast on Time Warner Cable. Let's start with a pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask Councilman Chris Warner to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Chris. I'm going to ask Ishir Seth to please join me here at the podium. We're here tonight to present Ishir with a certificate of congratulations. And I will just read it for you because it is self-explanatory. Again, the certificate of congratulations. The town of Brighton proudly acknowledges and congratulates Ishir Seth for his recent award from the Society for Science and the Public at the Intel ISEF 2016 educational competition held May 13, 2016, for his submission in the physics and astronomy category. And this sounds very, very complicated, very far over my head, but analysis of chemical vapor deposition for neutron detection on Omega. And this certificate of congratulation is signed by myself. I'm going to present it to Ishir, and maybe you can explain to us a little bit what all of that really meant. But congratulations on your award. Great work. And again, Ishir's success is just another indication of the great work and the outstanding results of Brighton High School and the Brighton school system. But use either one of these microphones and tell us a little bit about your research.
Okay, so just briefly, I'm a senior at Brighton High School, and through the internship program offered by the Laboratory for Laser Energetics, as a junior, I worked there in the neutron detection department, where I studied a detection system for neutrons. It's very important to detect neutrons for improving fusion reactions, and the laser lab is the leading researcher in the area for fusion energy, and it was a really great opportunity that I encourage other students at Brighton or in Monroe County to pursue. I've been doing research there all year, and I'll be continuing this summer as well. And I hope to continue some sort of science research as I attend the University of Pennsylvania next year. Thank you.
Well, that's great. you. Congratulations. And the very best of luck to you as you finish your finals and move on to Penn next year. I'm sure you'll do well and represent Brighton and make us all proud. Congratulations. Okay, we will now start the open forum portion of the meeting. As always, during our open forum, members of the audience may address the town board about any matter, whether or not it's a matter that's on our agenda tonight for a public hearing. We do have one public hearing tonight. It's a public hearing concerning the proposed removal of trees located in the town highway right-of-way on Fireside Drive, Dorking Road, and Walden Place. So if you are here to address that public hearing and would like your comments to be included in the record, I would encourage you to wait for that public hearing. It'll be towards the start of the meeting. But if you're here to speak about anything else, we welcome you doing so. And I would note that if you are not here in the room but would like to comment from wherever you're watching our meeting tonight, you may do so by calling 303-3060. And someone will take your call and relay your question or your comment to us. If it's a question we can answer, whether it comes from the room or outside, we'll try to do that. If not, we'll get back to you with an answer if we possibly can. Again, that number to call in is 303-3060, 3060. In addition, if you are deaf or hearing impaired and would like to call on our TDD line, that phone number is 784-5205. So again, to call and participate in the open forum on our TDD line, please call 784-5205. We do look forward to hearing from you with your questions or concerns. If you'd like to speak, I will just please raise your hand. I will recognize you. If you would come to the podium, please state your name and address. Please direct your comments to the board and not to other members of the audience. Please try to be courteous and keep your comments as concise as possible. And if you do have written comments that you'd like to include in our record tonight, you can just leave them for the town clerk and we will add them to the record of tonight's meeting. So with that, the open forum is open. Is there anyone that would like to address the board during open forum? Yes. Dennis?
Well, I will start off. I'm Dennis Adams. I live at 44 Glen Road, and I've lived in that neighborhood for more than 50 years. I just want to say that I had some discussion not very long ago with my next door neighbor at 66, and the issue has always been parking in front of our homes. And we took a fresh look at the implications of what that means with the current plan, and we both came to the realization that we want the plan just the way it is. That any amendments which permit parking below the turnaround would not only negate the effect of the safety that this was brought up for, but it would make the situation worse, because it would be clearly obvious by the time drivers got to the turnaround that there was additional parking below. And that parking would be most likely to fill up quickly. So that's, please vote for it the way it is.
Thank you, Dennis. And when you say keep it the way it is, I assume what you're saying is not the current code, but the proposed local law that was the subject of the public hearing. Okay.
That's as is.
Thank you.
I'm Blair Hornbuckle. I live at 66 Glen Road. I'm the referred to next door neighbor that Denny just mentioned. And what was overlooked before, just something that never came up, was added parking on our side of the street is 10 or 12 spaces, which pushes it okay to park much further down than it is now. And the implication is there kind of a ripple effect there, which is why I changed my position on this and say yes to supporting the plan as Tim Keefe wrote it up, so that we lose those parking spaces on our side of the street. It's the simplest thing to prevent confusion on the part of park visitors. And for that reason, I support the proposal the way it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair.
Hi, I'm Deborah Correa at 69 Glen Road, and I really would like to plead with you to take a fresh look at this proposal and what is factual and what is conjecture, what addresses safety in the current conditions and what is an imagined future. Because nothing in this proposal changes the main problems with parking on Glen Road. There's not one bit of that that prevents the amount of cars from the top of the intersection near 441 on both sides where there's no shoulder, from people jamming their cars in with no lines, no clarity, hodgepodge in. Nothing in this plan changes that situation where people are coming out from behind cars, where the pedestrians then from those positions are walking in the middle of the street with their strollers, with their pets, with their children, down the middle of the street. Nothing addresses those safety concerns, which I think are the primary safety concerns on Glen Road. What it does do is take away 6 or 7 parking places near my home and my neighbor's home that are vital to people visiting these homes. When I'd had caregivers at my home, when I have workers at my home, even my own family is awkward to pull into my driveway. They don't like pulling in my driveway because there's a stone wall on one side and it's at an angle that's scary. And that to remove these spaces that have not created a safety issue ever, with the idea that somehow removing all parking beyond the blind curve is going to prevent cars coming down the road, is just not fact-based or reality-based. There's 6 houses beyond that point. All newcomers want to see where they're going. I'm all in support of creative solutions with signage, with saying no parking beyond this point on the right, turn around here, even like no place to turn around but here, or don't use driveways. But I will say that my driveway is used predominantly. And I know this is redundant, and I was here before, and I don't really like repeating myself, but I'm wanting you to understand reality versus conjecture about fear, about what might happen. And it disturbs me, this plan, that it doesn't address safety, and taking away those parking does not create a safer situation. It's an imagined situation. Those spots do not create a safety issue. There is no parking when the road narrows. So, as I was saying, my driveway gets the most turnarounds. I don't have a problem with that. I don't come here and complain about that. I don't say put a sign, don't turn around in my driveway. I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't let my friends, family, workers, people coming to my home not be able to park nearby. That matters to me. There's a lot of coming and going. That matters to me, and I'm afraid that if you accept this proposal as it is, it'll never come back. And that this, to me, and I've said this to some of my neighbors, if this imagined reality that all of a sudden a lot of people are going to be parking in front of number 44 and number 66 and it creates a problem, I'll be the first one in here to support a plan to eliminate parking there. But I don't want to take it away when it's not an issue. It hasn't been an issue, and it's disturbing to me that the plan isn't addressing people walking in the street or people parking in part of the street and narrowing the road. It's talking about an area that's not a problem, reducing parking where there has not been a problem. And I agree with taking it away on the one side where they limited parking 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then there'll be no way that there'll be a narrowing of the road because there would only be allowed parking on one side. And as it is, nobody sees it because nobody is driving on Glen Road from Corbett's Glen in for the first time. They're not going to even see the parking on that side. And since I don't want you to approve this plan, and I'm hoping that you'll rewrite a proposal that actually is more effective, and I'm happy to come and be on any committee to come up with any better solution and spend time with you around this. But perhaps the issue that was raised this week where the parking is coming so close to the turnaround that there's some fears based on where the new parking is and what that might create, maybe we'll just shorten that a little bit so it doesn't create the problem that is now another hypothetical thing in the future. And as far as I can see, parking in front of homes is not an issue. That's not a safety issue. I mean, you're allowing it up Glen Road where it really is a safety issue. It's a mess. So I'm not exactly sure how this works and why you would support this. And it's disturbing to me, frankly. And I hope you can distinguish fact from fear. And I will acknowledge all of you for really wanting to support a better solution on Glen Road and recognizing that there is an issue on Glen Road. This proposal does not really rectify the main issues. I hope that's clear, and I really hope you do not vote for this proposal.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during our open forum? Yes, sir, come on up.
So I just begin
Yes.
this one? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Greg Griffo. I live on 89 Greenway Road, which is at the corner of Greenway and Walden Place. And I just wanted to say I'm in favor of getting that tree removed that's at the end of my driveway. Just because it's kind of been overhanging my house. It's destroying my driveway. It's destroying the sidewalk. And I've actually had a couple branches fall and break my window in my previous car that was a company car. So now that I don't have a company car, it's more of a concern to me.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to suggest, and thank you for that. We will be holding a public hearing on that shortly.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
No, that's all right. This section of the meeting doesn't officially get included in that public record, but in about 5 minutes we will get to that, and you can, repeat
That's
that
perfect.
rationale, and
Okay,
that'll
thank
be
you.
in the record then. Thank you so much. Greg, you said your name was?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the town board during the open forum? Yes, Ralph.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Ralph Titucci, and I'm here representing 293A Alden Road. We're the owners of the property at 1201 Elmwood Avenue. It's the former Rochester Psychiatric Center Hospital, also known as the Terrence Building. And we appreciate the opportunity tonight to just introduce the project in an informal manner to the board and let you know what we're anticipating as a proposal. I didn't want to take the liberty of moving the board up, so if I could, I just set the site plan up here.
Oh, sure. Maybe, do you want to bring the board up? Tim, maybe can you help get the board? Ken?
That's it, no, just one. We got a volunteer to hold it.
Oh, all right. See the board, be the board. Okay, if you can maybe get situated so the, I want to make sure one of the cameras can get it.
Look like that's going to work.
Okay, that's probably good. I think that side camera can get you there.
We okay?
Yep.
Thank you. The project that we're proposing is a mixed-use redevelopment of the site, and it includes the abatement and demolition of the existing 17-story tower, the former hospital building. Our entry point will remain as the traffic signal exists today at the intersection of Elmwood Avenue and Azalea Drive. And we've got another volunteer. The project will consist of roughly 17 and a half acres, which is situated in the city of Rochester. This roadway that we're proposing as an internal roadway is basically the demarc between the municipal boundary of the city of Rochester to the west and the town of Brighton portion on the east, which abuts the St. John's Brickstone. Okay. That works?
Yeah, I want to make sure the audience can
Yeah, it's
see
kind of
that,
tough for the
though,
audience
too.
to see.
I think they can.
Can we go that way? Great, thank you.
Good, okay.
We can move this.
Yeah, and the audience see it at all? Thanks,
Okay.
thanks very much. The property currently that lies within the town of Brighton is zoned RLB, low-density residential, and the portion which is in the city of Rochester is currently zoned institutional plan development. And we would anticipate making applications for rezoning the property in its entirety. With the proposed development, we are looking to have two relatively small, two-story commercial buildings along Elmwood Avenue within the city portion, respectively. They'd be 12 and 7,000 square feet in total, and one which would be at the northeast corner, the top portion of the 100-foot strip of land. It's the town of Brighton, which would be 9,600 square feet, and again, a two-story structure. Along the Elmwood Avenue faces a proposed hotel. We anticipate from our market study that it would be approximately 112 guest rooms in total. At the location of the existing tower, we're proposing to replace that building with a building that will range in height from 5 to 12 stories and will contain 320 apartments. A centered courtyard with 2 levels of parking below and an enclosed garage, as well as surface parking. That would be joined by a pedestrian bridge to a 2-story community building, which also will have an outdoor pool and recreational amenities inside, as well as our leasing office. Along the Brickstone property line, we will be proposing 22 units of ranch units with 2-car garage attaches as well.
And those are 11 buildings, right, Ralph? Each one with 2?
11 buildings,
units.
each with 2 units per building, yes. And they'll be approximately the same square footage as the Brickstone bungalows are. Heading south, we will have then another apartment building, a 5-story, with 100 units and 1 level of parking garage below that. And then at the extreme southeast corner of the property, again in the town of Brighton portion, will be a 4-story building with 80 apartments and surface parking. The property will be serviced by a roadway connection to the existing Science Parkway cul-de-sac, which ultimately terminates at the intersection of South Avenue with a signalized intersection there as well. The easternmost portion of our, southeasternmost portion of the property is a New York State wetland with a 100-foot buffer, and we intend to continue that in its existence. The anticipation is that we will undertake applications in the near future and have conducted quite a bit of our studies already in anticipation of that submission. We've now had roughly 5 meetings with neighbors and informational meetings to show them the intent that we have, and we're hoping that it'll continue to be well received. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Ralph. I do appreciate the 2 large meetings that you held in the town of Brighton at the Brickstone Winter Garden area, both of which were well attended and had a lot of questions, a lot of dialogue, and also the fact that you did come in yesterday to discuss this as well with the Public Works Committee. So thank you for that. But are there any questions either from members of the board or if there are members of the audience that have questions?
All of them are rentals, correct?
That is correct.
And in the Brighton portion, besides the 11 buildings, what's the total number of units?
There will be 22 units in those 11 buildings and 80 units in the building at the southeast corner, the 4-story. So that'll be 102 units in the town of Brighton.
And no part of the hotel will be in Brighton.
That's correct.
Any retail?
There will be commercial, whether it's retail or professional office type space. It'll be commercial, and that's this building at the northeast corner. It's roughly 9,600 square feet in a 2-story structure, so a little bit under 5,000 square feet per floor.
In Brighton?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else in Brighton?
No.
And when do you think, is the Brighton portion going to be done last?
No, actually, because of the nature of the site improvements that we require, the roadway system and so on, that'll be really part of phase 1.
And when do you think that will be?
I'm sorry.
When do you think that will be?
When will it occur? We're looking for 2017.
Mr. Tucci, I understand that there's meant to be a walkway or trail in between this parcel and the Brickstone parcel. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's the Highland Park Canalway Trail system that actually will just clip the northeastern tip of our property, and it's currently proposed to run along on the St. John Brickstone portion of the property, and then it heads east and then down southerly through the DDSO property, which fronts on Westfall Road. With the permission of the town and hopefully New York State DEC, we'd like to anticipate on our property a connection to that trail system in the southeast corner. We've got an open space that would lend itself to it. Our design is one that's really focused on walkability and biking opportunities, and the connectivity of the Highland Park Canalway Trail system will take folks all the way to the canal system. So there's a lot of mileage in there for biking and walking.
I'm going to ask if you'd like to, if you have a question, if you don't mind coming up to the microphone so the folks at home can hear the question, and then Mr. Tucci can come back and give it an answer.
I am Greg Griffo again. I didn't attend any of the meetings, but I was just wondering, what's the target market that you're focusing this towards?
That's a good question, thank you. We're trying to have as diverse a market as possible. So there's the reason for the variety of different types of rental units, from the single family, single residence, the single level ranch units, is to be able to hit different price points along with different size units. So some of the units, for example, in Building B, the southeastern corner, are slightly smaller units. We have provision for 10% of the overall parking will be provided, in addition to the required parking, will be provided with biking storage. So we're looking to have folks who can live here and walk to work because of all of the employment centers in the area, as well as the fact that we've got regional transit service, bus service at the front of the property today. And our hope is that we can coordinate with them to have internal routing of the bus as well, so that we can share bus service with the Psych Center and Science Parkway.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. DiTucci? Judy?
My only question for the moment is the market study about a hotel, because Citygate has had a pad for a hotel from the very beginning. It's still there, I believe, and I don't know of anything that's coming forward. So how do we know that there's really going to be a need for that? Even though this isn't in Brighton, it certainly will still affect us. So I worry about a building going up and maybe not being used, and then what? So that's my question.
Ralph?
Thank you, Judy. We worry about that when it happens too. Fortunately, our market study was took into account the Citygate as well as College Town hotels, and we've already been approached by 2 hotels who would like to locate on our site within the past month.
Okay, thank you.
Are you going to be going for Comida?
We're not to that point yet where we know. We're really still doing our diligence in terms of what the infrastructure will be. We just recently were able to accomplish the provision for the Science Parkway roadway connection, so we now need to update our construction costs, and once we get to a further point with our development pro forma, we can better address what our needs are going to be and whether or not we'll consider doing that. And I'm not sure if it's going to be the same with the city as with the town. They may be handled differently.
Ralph, yesterday at our Public Works Committee meeting, we had a brief discussion, a question about any portion of this to be designated for affordable housing.
Yes. And we anticipate that, and it's part of our objective with the building that's at the southeast corner of the property, to make it more moderately priced. So we're trying to use a slightly smaller footprint for the use, and that building also will not have an underground garage to go with surface parking only. So we anticipate that we would have some capability to provide affordable units in that building.
Are these going to be one development but 2 separate developments?
No, it's going to be one monolithic development. It will be in phases because of the financing. We'll have a subdivision plan with individual parcels, but it'll all be under one umbrella.
So there's no difference in the way a Brighton portion would be run as opposed to a city?
No, we'll manage the project in its entirety.
Actually, my question is related as far as the coordinated review. I'm not sure if this is for Mr. DiTucci or if this is for us internally, but since a portion of this is in the city and a portion of this is in the town of Brighton, how will the review process go and how will we coordinate with our colleagues in the city?
That's a discussion that is ongoing. Ralph and I, we discussed it to some extent again yesterday in Public Works. Town staff has had that discussion as well with city staff. Ralph is very well aware, I believe that this is clearly for SEQR, State Environmental Quality Review purposes, a type 1 action that should be covered by an environmental impact statement. And we look forward to coordinating that process with the city. The larger piece of the project is in the city, and we do recognize that, but we believe that it should receive that level of environmental review. But that's there are matters yet to be resolved in terms of just how that environmental review would be conducted.
Exactly. And we're working towards a conclusion, I think, in the near term on doing that.
Mr. DiTucci, regarding demographics and your market appeal, is it to be expected that the units in Brighton will largely be seniors or
We're really We're really not trying to target a specific population. We're really trying to have a diverse population, and we feel that the units in Brighton will lend themselves to being appealing to seniors, but they might equally be appealing to younger folks as well.
So it could well impact on the schools as well, depend.
The likelihood from our historical data on other projects is that the school-age population of this project in its totality will be a pretty low percentage.
Yes, Blair.
What is currently happening in the tower, and when would it be demolished?
Currently in the tower, we have daily visitation by all types of folks who are videographers, vandals, etc., and we have the security patrol that is there. I don't want to disclose when they're there because that would inform people who want to get into the building when to be there or not. But we continue to try to keep the building secure, and our program right now is we're updating the bidding process for the abatement of the asbestos in the building, and that'll be part and parcel of our going forward pro forma to abate the building and then demolish it.
So the timetable for demolition?
Our hope is that we'll be able to get started on the abatement and the demolition, hopefully the approval process by the end of this year and into spring to get the abatement going. There are environmental conditions, weather conditions that affect when you can do that work. Thank you.
Anything else?
I just had one, actually,
sure.
Mr. Tucci, and I apologize, I couldn't make the second meeting, 'cause I had a conflict, but it looks like this is a fair amount of change from the initial plan, if I recall. Like locations of some of the hotel and some of the other buildings, they're not, was it the same?
No,
footprint or-
they're actually still in the same locations. The primary changes since that earlier plan you may have seen, the major change is the ability to make this connection to Science Parkway to improve traffic management, and also the connection point for cross-access to the Brickstone project.
Oh, okay. All right.
But the buildings and the scope of the project are the same.
Okay, yeah, I had the hotel in a different spot in my mind from before. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you for coming in tonight, Ralph.
Thank you very
Appreciate it, and
much.
we'll look forward to seeing where the review process goes. Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during the open forum? Deb?
Deborah Correa, 69 Glen Road. I just wanted to say that even though I want to retain some parking down near 59, 69, 66, and 44 Glen Road, there's only really a need for one or two places, like the letter from David Platoff stated at the last hearing at the town board. So, if we can rework this plan to just allow enough for like a carpenter's truck or, one or two cars, I would be, I don't need a lot of parking down there for people. So as a compromise.
Thank you. Anyone else for the open forum? Then we will move on, and I would like a resolution, please, to approve the agenda. We did not receive any written comments, did we, Dan? Then can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And a motion, please, to approve and file the minutes for town board meetings on May 11th and May 25th.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Now we move to the public hearing on the trees that was mentioned earlier. This is the proposed removal of trees located at actually adjacent to, in the tree lawn in front of 36 Fireside Drive, 208 Dorking Road, and 89 Walden Place. Dan, has the necessary legal notice been
It has. It was
delivered on
published
all of these?
in the May 19th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
And sent to the adjoining property owners? Okay, good. Then the public hearing on the proposed removal of trees, notice having been given, I call the public hearing to order and would now invite to come on up and address at least one of those trees.
My name is Greg Griffo. I live at 89 Greenway Road, which is at the corner of 89 or of Greenway and Walden Place. That's two adjacent lots to each other that are combined into one property. I'm asking to have the tree removed that's on Walden Place. That's at the end of my driveway. It's a silver maple back tree. It's huge. It's destroying my driveway. It's destroying the sidewalk. And it also has limbs that are falling on my vehicle, and as well as poses a hazard to people walking on the sidewalk, the road, and my house itself. So,
I assume that you all, thank you very much.
Okay,
I assume
thank
that
you.
you all saw the picture of this tree in particular, which is in the middle of the driveway, literally. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on this matter? Tim, maybe you can comment. We have reports, but...
If you will, Supervisor. Bill, we did get two other neighbors to send either via phone or by email support in removing this tree, Greenway and Walden. So we do have that support as well as for the tree on Dorking, the property owner that the tree is situated in front of also expressed their support of tree removal. We did not get any, I have not heard anything from folks relative to Fireside, so I do not have anything to enter into the record on that. However,
other than our arborist.
That's correct, as far as our reports. Now, when you look at these, and they're all silver maples, we know the history of silver maples in town. They provide a phenomenal canopy and presence on the street, but probably on each street they're about the same age, and they all tend to decline at the same rate. And what Mr. Griffo's expressed as far as dropping branches and other damage, they're not a tree that we would recommend as a replacement for, in kind. In fact, up in Greg's neighborhood, we, obviously if you recall a number of years back, we identified a number of trees that were deficient, and we have taken our time, worked with the neighborhood, gone in and done a further assessment with our highway crews as far as infill planting that we did a few years back, and also suitable street trees that will come back, be a much better street tree, but also have similar characteristics of presence in the neighborhood and tree canopy and things of that nature. So we have, really worked with your neighborhood very extensively as far as a management plan, if you will. So, and actually, one of the neighbors requested that we look at their tree as well up in the Greenaway neighborhood. So, we have, I think, to the best of everyone's ability in a cooperative effort, tried to manage this well without decimating the neighborhood, because we could have taken a lot of these trees out at one time.
Well, it's a beautiful neighborhood with an amazing tree canopy, and you and the board and the neighbors have worked together for many, many years, trying to gradually replace the most damaged, diseased, old, at-risk trees. And you've also done a great job of replanting. We're obviously not going to plant a tree in the same location that this one is located, but I know you're looking to try to find another spot in the general area to preserve that tree canopy.
And we will do our best in it. Like you say, Bill, our intent is always to replace a tree. We are a Tree City, USA. But if we can't put it in the same spot, we'll try to do it in the neighborhood or another suitable location.
there's actually plenty suitable location, like if it was like planted like 20 feet to the left of it,
Right.
or right behind whichever way you're looking at. there they could plant 2 more trees and it'd be perfect. So,
Good, thank you.
is it okay if I plant one after they take it out, or?
No,
Or do I have to request which?
Because we have, an identified list of preferred street trees.
Gotcha.
Our crews will come out and plant one that's suitable and continues. As Tim pointed out, part of the problem in the neighborhood is it really was a monoculture. They are all silver maples, and they are all beautiful. But having that variety and having trees that really do work well in a street environment is important.
Thank you.
But thank you for the offer.
But Tim, do you consult with the neighbors in terms of the selection of trees?
If they like, yes, we would certainly be happy to go over the street tree list with you. And if there was something that you preferred versus not, I can give you all the Latin names and then you can make a choice.
Great.
But we'd be happy to do that with you, Greg, if you wanted to. We'll have our highway crew when they're up there. And if you want to, either you can drop me an email, I can send you back a list of the trees, if that's easiest. So, okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on this public hearing? Hearing none, then I declare the public hearing closed. Jim, can I have
Yes,
a
in the
motion?
matter before us regarding the proposed removal of these trees, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. We have no bids tonight. Communications, can I have a motion to receive and file the communications?
So moved.
Second?
We have correspondence from the State Department of Taxation and Finance regarding the tentative equalization rate of 94 for the town for the 2016 assessment roll. That's down from 95 from last year. It is an indication of some still modest but increasing variance between market values of houses in Brighton and assessment levels. It actually reflects the fact that housing prices in Brighton are rising and rising more rapidly. That's good news. But what it also indicates is the need to continue to address assessment. Once we get over 95 or under 95 or over 105, we have felt that it's something that really is an indication that we need to start looking at a revaluation. So I have been, meeting with our town assessor, Elaine Ainsworth, over some period of time, and we can look for a town-wide assessment in the not too distant future. We'll need to finalize that timeline, but as we've done in the past, we'll make sure it's a very transparent process, one that residents will have an opportunity to be very directly engaged in, with the goal, as always, of making sure that as much as possible, the assessment that you get from the town does reflect 100% of the actual market value of the home. We never get them all right, and that's why we have a Board of Assessment review, why there is an appeal process. But I do think, and even though there is certainly a financial commitment on the part of the town, it has always been our very strong policy that once we see assessed valuations moving away from actual full value market pricing, it's time to look at a revaluation. So that's something we're going to be seeing in particular as we look at the budget process, which, by the way, begins tomorrow morning at 7:30 with our first meeting, the Budget Review Task Force, on our capital improvement plan. It seems like we just approved a budget, but we start the process again. So we also have correspondence both from Deborah Correa and from Blair Hornbuckle, whom we have heard from this evening, both concerning parking on Glen Road. So we have a motion and a second to receive and file those communications. Any further discussion? And please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Committee reports, Community Services Committee. Chris?
Bill, our next community service meeting will be on the 15th of June at 9:30 a.m. It will be over at the Rec Department at Brookside School.
Thank you. And we do have a couple of community activities coming up that I just want to mention. First, tomorrow evening from 4 to 8 in the Brighton High School parking lot will be the first food truck rodeo here in Brighton. Brighton Kiwanis is sponsoring this. It is a it's a fundraiser for the service projects of Brighton Kiwanis, but there'll also be an opportunity. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children will be there for fingerprinting, but they're going to have 12 food trucks there at Brighton High School. We encourage you to walk or ride your bike, as those of you who go to the market know. Parking, well, there's a good-sized lot there. It's going to be a nice night and I think very popular. So if you can walk or ride, please do. This Sunday at 10 a.m. is our annual bike rodeo. The bike rodeo is something that our Recreation Department puts on in partnership with the Brighton Police and the Brighton Police Patrol Association. The Patrol Association donates bicycle helmets for all the kids. They will be fitted for the right size of helmet. The Brighton Police Explorers are involved. The Brighton Rotary is involved as a sponsor. 12 Corners Mobile will be offering 2 new bikes that will be raffled off to kids that participate, as they do each year. And the AAA will be there as well. So 10 o'clock Sunday morning. We'd appreciate it if you register in advance on the Town of Brighton Recreation webpage. But if you forget, feel free to come. We'd love to have as many folks as possible. Then next Monday night, June 13th, from 7 to 9, we will be holding the 3rd public information meeting on the Envision Brighton Comprehensive Plan. This public meeting will specifically focus on developing plans for Buckland Park. So Buckland Park, of course, is a favorite area both for active and passive recreation, but we want to get your input as to additional uses for that land, which can range from, different types of active, passive recreation. We've received a number of ideas that people have, also trails. So come out, we'll have material on that land, and love to have your input on that.
And Bill, other aspects, since we're giving announcements rather than just a report on the committee itself, part of the committee's work is dealing with our traffic box
Yes. decorations.
This is not, as the chief said, my origami collection, but these are what's been submitted so far by various members of the community, and we have a jury that's looking at them and has made some tentative selections, but we're still collecting in other submissions and refinements of the submissions. So this is just an example of the sorts of things that have been suggested.
I think it's great, Chris. Thank you. We've gotten such a great response to the first 2 boxes. They've really spruced up those 2 intersections, and looking forward
great fun.
to these.
Great fun.
And one last event is the dedication of the new park here across the street, and the grand opening of our Brickyard Trail that runs about 3/4 of a mile through that park. That will be on Wednesday, June 29th at 11 a.m. at the Elmwood Avenue Trailhead. It's beautiful land, beautiful trail, some very interesting interpretive signage and other materials that will tell the story not only of the beautiful land and the flora and the fauna that are in there, but the history of Brighton as a brickmaking community and just how that parcel of land came to take on the appearance that it has today. So again, June 29th, that's a Wednesday at 11 a.m., grand opening of the trail. And I know, Chris, you're going to have your bike there, and
Well, unfortunately, I won't. My bike will,
oh, that's
will
right.
be in
You're not going to
Havana.
be here. That's right. Richard DeSera, though, I know will be
Rich is
leading
going to come out with bicyclists there. I'm very frustrated, but I've already somehow seen the trail already, and it is spectacular.
Yeah.
Richard will lead the official bicyclists opening of that trip.
Great, thanks. Jason, Finance.
Yes, the Finance Administrative Services Committee meeting met last Wednesday. Each of the items that were discussed are on the agenda, with the exception of the FASC discussed with our Finance Director, Suzanne Zaso, purchase contracts available for piggybacking through the National Joint Powers Alliance in Minnesota. The abbreviation is NJPA, but it's not New Jersey, it's Minnesota. The Finance Department has reviewed this purchasing alliance and has determined that they meet the requirements under New York State General Municipal Law for piggybacking, and therefore recommend that the town departments be allowed to purchase off existing available contracts through the NJPA. The FASC concurred with that determination. And the FASC also discussed with Rebecca Cotter the purchase of 2 table umbrellas for the swimming pool deck area behind the town hall to provide shade for residents using the pool. And the FASC concurs with that purchase. With respect to the piggybacking, we discussed another type of consortium a few weeks ago that wasn't based in New York, but we are now allowed under New York General Municipal Law to look outside of New York State. We've been looking within New York State solely, but if these other consortiums comply with all of our rules and they provide for good opportunities for purchasing, then we may as well take advantage of them.
Absolutely.
So our next regular meeting will be on Wednesday, June 15th. We meet at 8 o'clock in the morning in the Stage Conference Room at 8:30. Did I say 8 o'clock? 8:30 in the morning, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. Louise, Public Safety?
Public Safety has not met since the last town board meeting. The next meeting will be on the 14th of June at 8 in the morning, downstairs meeting room. Oh, no, it's going to be in the upstairs room, and public is invited.
Thank you. Jim, Public Works?
Public Works met this past Tuesday.
Yesterday.
In fact, yesterday.
We're already with minutes.
And
very good.
With that, during the open forum, we had an inquiry about the proposed Pinnacle Hill subdivision. Jim Coffey of Midland Avenue inquired as to the status of the proposal with regard to the potential sanitary sewers to service the area. Our Public Works staff advised that the developer had attended the May Public Works meeting to discuss the alienation of parkland issue and its impact on the project. Now, based upon that discussion, the developer indicated that they would evaluate the alternatives to determine the best course of action. I think going forward, what we're looking at is to get together, the staff will get together with the developer to really further discuss this.
Well, I think, as I understand it, up to date, what we're now looking at is they're looking for an answer out of the town as to whether we would support a home rule request. I believe they now recognize that the case law on alienation of property would apply in this situation, and we, the board, are going to have to make a decision as to whether we think that is appropriate, whatever impact it might have on the park versus any benefits that we might find as it relates to this potential development. So that's the issue that I think the board is going to have to make a decision on, and if we do, we would need to make a request to our State Assembly, Joe Morelli, and State Senator Joe Robach to sponsor such legislation. If not, they have indicated that they would have a different development proposal in that area that would not involve the same kind of line across the park, but would also not involve benefits to adjoining properties of some sewer and drainage improvements. So those are the trade-offs that we're going to have to
Yeah, because
address here.
basically, right now, they all have septic tank,
That's correct.
not regular sanitary sewer. Yeah.
Are you indicating that the first trade-off was that nothing would go in there?
No, well, if they were to build what I believe was an 8-unit proposal that would not be incentive zoning, that would not involve any sewer improvements and drainage improvements for the neighbors on Midland.
Adjoining neighbors, yeah, to the property.
Then they would not be running this storm sewer line across
Parkland.
under the parkland. What there would be, from there would be construction, although they would, as I understand it, they would be boring the line so it would not be trenched through the park. I believe they had indicated, Tim, that they can do that even though it is a wetland, but that there would be, which reduces the amount of above-ground impact, but there would be a manhole in the park.
Well, because the last meeting, not yesterday's, but the last meeting, they had said, frankly, if we can't get approval of this, we're gonna just bow out.
Well, perhaps they would just build the 8-unit.
Was it 8 or 11? I was thinking.
Maybe it is. It's a smaller number.
Much smaller.
And that's what was indicated, that if the town did not endorse a measure by the state legislature for the alienation of parkland, that they would revert back to the zoning, the current zoning, and it would not be incentive zoning. So that would be a very straightforward proposal of extending the street and adding those lots that are currently there, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, all right. Then under old business, we discussed the development proposal by the DeMarco Group, and this is, they were providing an updated plans for development of that site, which is really located directly across from Tops Plaza. It's proposed to be a mixed-use commercial, office, and retail, and the developer expressed their intent to submit an incentive zoning application to the town regarding this matter. And this is...
which they have now done.
Which they have now done because it's on our agenda.
Revised.
Yeah, right. And then the next item is under old business. It's a development proposal for the psychiatric center, which Ralph Titucci was just discussing during the open forum. And again, the developers provided an update, which we heard this evening, that proposed plans for redevelopment of that area, which is situated for the most part in the city of Rochester, but there's some acreage adjoining in the town of Brighton. They were expressing their intent to submit applications to both the town of Brighton as well as the city of Rochester. The next item we covered were with regard to parks, Corbett's Glen parking, and the committee discussed that in the comments provided at the public hearing, and that is to be determined this evening in terms of how we see this. The consensus at the Public Works Committee was to delineate, help delineate the permitted and restricted parking along the Glen Road. So that's going to be on our item tonight. And then the other item is the grants for the Comprehensive Development Plan. The Comp Plan Committee, as you indicated, Bill, will host a public information meeting this coming Monday, June 13th at 7 o'clock here in Town Hall. Our next committee meeting will be on Tuesday, July 5th at 9 a.m. in the lower level community meeting room.
Thank you, Jim. We have no old business, new business. Reading and approval of the claims. Jason?
Yes, earlier this evening, I reviewed claims totaling $1,408,778.89. Notable claims included to Pipitone Enterprises in the amount of $136,552.05, representing the HVAC improvements for the Town Hall and Public Safety Wing. Also to the New York State Comptroller in the amount of $46,884, which represented April court fines, which was the state and county's share of fines that were collected in the court system. Also to Chase Bank in the amount of $134,286.97, which represented principal and interest on 2015 public improvement serial bonds. The claims all appeared to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Discussion. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner? Aye. Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to authorize the supervisor to execute an intermunicipal
Nope,
agreement.
the one above that.
The next one, the next matter is approval to appoint a particular person effective immediately with authorization to recruit for 3 additional part-time court attendant positions open due to recent resignations. I move on the resolution as done by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And let me just clarify, there have been 2 resignations among our part-time court attendants, but based upon a recent report and recent incident, there was a recommendation that the court is asking us to act upon to authorize recruiting for a total of 3 additional part-time positions in addition to the person that we have identified, Peter Prince. So we have that motion and second. Any further discussion? Mark, is there anything you want to say about this? Okay. There would be a financial impact. This would increase personnel expenses above what's currently budgeted. You want? Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about, or estimating about another $5,000 this year.
And more next
Okay, so
year
next
when
year
it's a
it'll be
full year.
closer to 10.
Yeah. But this was a strong recommendation that the Sheriff's Department made.
That these attendants would be serving all at the same time, is that correct?
The
Or
goal is...
They're not standby.
Right. The goal is, well, yes and no. They're not... The goal is that at all times that the court is open, generally, there's only one judge that's sitting at a given time. There are a few exceptions, but in general, most of the time, there's one judge. The goal is to have staffing capabilities, to have 2 people outside the courtroom staffing the screening device and monitoring the lobby area, as well as 2 part-time attendants in the courtroom itself. The Sheriff's Department has recommended that there be 2 attendants in the department, in the courtroom at all times. So that's the goal of hiring these additional people, is to be able to staff to do that.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the Brighton Central School District to provide a 1-to-1 aid for a participant in the 2016 Summer Playground Camp Program. I move that we adopt the resolution before us as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
This is a great indicator of the town and the school district working together. We have a student, a Brighton Central School District student, who wants to come to a week of our summer playground camp. He does have some particular needs, and frankly, those are not needs that we had on staff the specific expertise to do. But this student, who does receive support from aides at school, and the school district is in a position to more effectively employ someone to continue to fill this student's needs. So we will enter into this agreement with the school district. The school district would provide the aid for this student to enable him to attend the program. Becky does have funding in the program for a variety of special needs like this one. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is approval to accept cash and in-kind services from various sponsors for the 2016 Clean Sweep Program. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
I'd also like to thank the sponsors, if I may.
Absolutely. Please.
Okay, the in-kind sponsors were Bagel Land, and all of these sponsors, by the way, have been with us for the whole 9 years we've been doing this. Bagel Land for the bagels, Delta Labs for, what this time they gave us over 500 garbage bags, Great Harvest Bread Company for dessert platters, Starbucks for the coffee for both here and Friends Road, Tops for the donuts and orange juice, and Wegmans for the subs, chips, and apples. And then our financial sponsors, again, almost all of them have been with us forever. Brighton Chamber of Commerce, Brighton Fire District, Brighton Kiwanis, Brighton Rotary, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, Canandaigua National Bank, Dollinger Associates, Donna Matthews, Microworks, Ontario Hearing, Roselawn Neighborhood Association, Assemblyman Joseph Morelli, Tri-City Apartments, which is Rustic Village, and Waste Management. And I thank them all for making it possible. We couldn't have done it without you.
And of course, the great in-kind support of time and commitment and energy from you, Louise, and Annette Holohan, who the true dynamic duo of Clean Sweep. Thank you.
Right.
Another very successful year.
We're not finished yet. We're getting all our lists together, so next year will be 10 years, and we hope to have some suggestions from everybody to make it a very unusual Clean Sweep.
Okay. Good. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further comments, other than 2 thumbs up?
Yeah.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Just a little lead in on this next item. This is a matter that was discussed first in the Finance Committee last week, and it was based upon a need to replace an existing Kubota tractor that has seen better days. And we had a discussion at that meeting of possibly either replacing it in kind with another Kubota tractor, or potentially a mini loader that articulates so that the blade or attachment in the front can be, it's just a little more maneuverable. We had some pricing information on that item. We also got some pricing information in time for yesterday's Public Works Committee meeting yesterday. The Finance Committee was prepared to recommend an appropriation of $71,000 from the equipment, the highway fund, to purchase the loader, but they did want to get a comparison price on the Kubota tractor. We got that information in time for the Public Works Committee meeting yesterday. That was going to be somewhere in the $43,000 range, again, based on, was that the buying cooperative? I'm trying to remember. It was it not?
Yes.
Yep. So we got a good price from them. So although the Finance Committee had recommended the appropriation of that full $71,000 for the mini loader, after further review, as they say in football, the Public Works Committee looked at both of those prices and made a recommendation of the purchase of a replacement tractor, which would cost about $28,000 less for which the appropriation would be much smaller. We've got a number of 45,000 in here. So you have both the resolution that was originally prepared, which assumed that mini loader, but you also received a hard copy of one for the tractor itself. And I would ask for a motion. I guess I would ask for a motion to, from the chair of the Public Works Committee, Jim, based on your recommendation yesterday.
Yeah. Based upon the discussion we had and review of the budget appropriation, we move on resolution to authorize an appropriation in the amount of $71,000.
No, I thought we were going to do
No.
the Public Works recommendation of $45,000 that the Public Works Committee recommended yesterday.
Well, we were requesting authorization for an appropriation of $71,000 from the balance, from the highway fund balance, but it resolved that the town, having reviewed this proposal, has determined to instead appropriate $45,000 for the highway fund balance to the highway machinery tractor line to fund the purchase of a Kubota diesel tractor with attachments. So I move in that resolution that's prepared by the attorney to the town.
I second it.
Jason, I think, got that. Because we do have these two potentials, any discussion?
It was just, go ahead.
Go ahead.
It was discussed at Public Works, which I attended that portion of, and I'm impressed. The difference of $28,000 justifies getting the tractor. I understand that there is some use for a mini loader. We've had to rent those in the past, but overall, given the versatility of the tractor and just significant cost differential, that the tractor made more sense.
Louise?
I was at the Finance Committee, and I could not get to the Public Works yesterday. I thought that Tim Anderson did a very good job in telling us why he felt that it was best to go with the $71,000 machine because of the other things it could do. And I didn't hear yesterday's, but as far as I know, I'm for the $71,000. I think that there's so many times lately that we have gone to something lesser than what commissioners or the heads of departments want, simply because of price. And I'm sticking with the $71,000. So I would vote no.
Okay.
So, at the FAST meeting last week, when we were talking about doing this, spending the $71,000, this was an unplanned repair. This is a piece of equipment that just gave out on us unexpectedly. It wasn't in our CIP or our budget to replace it.
No, and in fact, it's in our CIP for 2018.
Yeah, it's the same thing that you're going to get instead.
And when we approved the appropriation or recommended the appropriation, figuring if we can get a piece of equipment for less, then whatever's left over would just fall back to fund balance. So, and then we asked for further information on what a replacement tractor would cost. And my thought was if a replacement tractor was slightly less, if the price difference was smaller, then maybe we could justify on this unplanned expenditure this year going with the more expensive piece of equipment. But given that there's such a large price differential, and also that we're about to enter into our CIP discussions and our budget discussions for the upcoming years, that if we after further review, that it would be better to replace these tractors as they go with the mini loaders, if we can maybe get by with less of them or not have to rent pieces of equipment, then we could go with it. But trying to get a piece of equipment in place in time for leaf removal for the fall, I'm more comfortable going with the lower appropriation. But I'm open to discussing it further in the budget review process going forward as to whether we purchase the mini loaders.
We had this discussion yesterday, as we said, and I think it comes down to an ROI, a return on the investment. In other words, how much of a delta are we getting in terms of services capability of the more expensive piece of equipment? And Tim, I think you ought to chime in on this. You're the commissioner, and how we got to where we are.
Thanks, Jim. I will unequivocally agree with Louise that Tim did a great job when he explained the mini loader and that we had rented one and some of his capabilities. I thought he brought to light a number of things that we always strive for is the multi-purpose use of a lot of the equipment we use. At the time in Finance Committee, we thought that the differential would be quite a bit less between the two pieces of equipment. I think the mini loader, and I know Bill perked up when he heard some of the things relative to sidewalk snow plowing that it could do, and things that, you know, really have been things we've been striving to improve upon over time. But again, going back to the fact that you're talking $43,000 versus $71,000, it was certainly a large chunk of change. Differential when the actual numbers came in was the discussion at yesterday's Public Works Committee that we felt that as much as from, if you want to call it a departmental standpoint, we would certainly have loved to get the articulated mini loader. It probably, from a financial standpoint, the differential was a lot greater than we anticipated, and that the tractor will still serve us very well, you know, for the needs that we have.
In terms of the investment, I see that the one that's being replaced here is a 2004, so we've gotten 11, 12 good years of heavy use of a tractor. So,
Did you?
But it's,
Which we use both for leaf
and
pickup,
sidewalk snow
brush
plowing.
pickup, and sidewalk
Snow
snow
plowing,
plowing. So
yeah.
those tractors are used year-round.
constantly.
Suzanne, did you look at the $71,000 one through a buying service or through that?
It's actually
Yes.
be piggy,
Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
piggybacking on a contract with the town of Cheektowaga.
Yeah.
71.
So it was on another piggybacking bid, Louise, and Ken actually chimed in too, because they had put that bid out last year, but we felt it was still a valid bid. And in the research that Tim had done as well, that was a very good and reasonable price. You know, we've looked at other pieces of equipment over the years, and I really do, you know, appreciate your support for, you know, for our department, as well as the entire board support of our department. We know that it's tough financial times. There's no shaking that. And even though we have money in the equipment reserve, we still have to be very prudent about what's happening. I know Bill, I think, after his initial election and getting into the swing of things, has been very supportive of getting us back on track with vehicle replacement and things of that nature, which we desperately need to do the services that we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the best plowed roads in the county. And a number of other things and other initiatives that we've taken. So we certainly appreciate all of that, and the fact that, you know, we are trying to every year do something to keep our fleet current and, you know, basically well-maintained and serviceable from the standpoint of reliability and doing our jobs. So that is wholehearted support that we have, and it's not an easy task sitting at the front table, as you folks know. You know, so we try to weigh, you know, everything so that we make the best decision possible. And the tractor's not a bad decision, let's put it that way. I think that if you really want to, you know, try to put it in context, it's still a good decision. You know, and it really just boiled down to, you know, the actual monetary outlay.
And I would just say, Tim, it's not an easy job sitting at the controls of whichever piece of equipment we purchase, and we appreciate the hard work that your staff under your leadership.
And you're right, Bill, it's the kudos that go to everybody that's on the feet on the ground and doing the job every day, because we sit here and it's not an easy job. And it's in as much as we try, we're never 100% successful, even though we strive for perfection. You know, people still, you know, see the things that we don't do. And those are the minority, though.
We try to make them
99%,
right.
yeah, 99% of the things we do, people, I know they appreciate. And we provide a lot of services other communities do not. And we do it, I think, for a great price when you look at your tax bill. I think it's, you know, the return, if you want to go back to what you were saying, Jim, your return on an investment as a resident of town or property owner in town, we do a phenomenal job for the taxes that people pay here at the town level.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
No.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. The next item relates to receiving and filing an incentive zoning application from the DeMarco Group, because this is, I'm sorry, yes, sir, come on up. Yes, we are, thank you. Thank you. You can watch the rest of the meeting at home. Receiving and filing an incentive zoning application from the DeMarco Group. This is a matter that I have to recuse myself on, so I will leave and ask you, Jim, to lead the discussion on this.
All right. And in the matter before us, resolution is to receive and file the incentive zoning application amendment dated May 23rd, 2016 from the DeMarco Group for the proposed 1925 South Clinton Avenue project. That's the address, not the date. And we reviewed this yesterday, or received it, I should say, at the Public Works Committee. And so all we are doing tonight is just accepting it, receiving and filing it. Any comment on that, Tim, from your standpoint?
It just begins the process, Jim, of,
Yes, right.
you know, the project review and consideration by the town board, because it is an incentive zoning application.
I just like to be real careful about the language we use. We're not accepting anything, we're just receiving and filing.
Receiving and filing.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
And the next step is to determine its sufficiency and whether it addresses the various impacts on the community. And then from that point, once we believe it's sufficient to warrant public hearing, then the public will weigh in on it.
And again, I'll just emphasize, all we're doing tonight is receiving and filing a document. We're making no decisions, simply receiving it and filing it.
What is the time frame as far as us giving any input to Ramsey or whoever's going to be looking at it?
If the project goes forward, if the town wants to consider the project, then there will be a full review. That will be subject to committee review. It'll be subject to public hearings, but none of that has taken place at this point in time.
I mean, we have notebooks to pick up to read about what they're doing, and I picked mine up today and I started reading it, and I had some questions and comments. I did talk to Ramsey, and he said that he was interested in getting our feedback as he goes forward with reviewing it himself. So
Absolutely.
I just wondered if there was a time frame.
Well, there will ultimately be a time frame, Louise, but right now, I think what the board will typically do is refer this to the planning board for an opinion, some type of advisory opinion. And, as always, feel free to come in, sit down with staff. If you have a chance to go through the whole document and have a comprehensive list of things, that's always helpful as well. So you need a half hour, an hour, we'll spend whatever time we need with you or anyone else on the board to try to clarify things. And as Ken and Jim have said, I'm sure there'll be future workshops.
Yes.
We will have questions of the developer as well.
Jim, they don't have a Mimi's in there yet, so we have to really talk to them. That's a restaurant.
Yes. Restaurant in California. It's been very successful, very well received.
Yeah, but I would encourage each of you. I would encourage each of you, though, to take the time, read the documents, sit down with staff. If you have questions, Louise, or any of you, absolutely appropriate for you to meet with staff, discuss your concerns, get staff's perspective, and as you know, we have a tremendously experienced and professional staff, and you'll get as much out of them, and they'll get quite a bit out of you as well. So that'll be a good process. And then when we are ready to establish an official timeline, then we'll bring the matter before the board again and have a discussion as to setting time parameters for submission of the appropriate documents and setting the appropriate hearings. But we're not there yet.
No, this is only the beginning, like you said. All right. Having said that,
So I move that we receive and file the incentive zoning application amendment dated May 23, 2016 from the DeMarco Group for the proposed 1925 South Clinton Avenue project in accordance with the resolution before us as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
all right, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
I need to get Bill back in here.
Thank you, Jim. And the last item on the agenda tonight is the proposed local law regarding parking restrictions along Glen Road. We have held a public hearing. It was held open on a couple of subsequent meetings, and we've heard some further discussion and some further communication tonight. And you do have a proposed resolution and proposed local law in front of you. So if I can have a motion on that, and then we'll have the opportunity for discussion.
Okay.
Jim, you want to?
All right. The matter before us, I move on the resolution as proposed local law regarding parking restrictions along Glen Road. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion.
Bill, I've had discussions with at least two of the members here at length. And at first I was convinced that perhaps there's no harm in leaving a couple open spots, as Deb Correa has suggested. At the same time, and there is no perfect solution here, and I do agree strongly that there is more to be done there, and we need to look at what our other alternatives are in terms of highway marking perhaps, or looking at potential other parking sites, et cetera. But in terms of leaving those spots open in front of the residences, I am inclined against it now to go with the proposal as submitted right now. What persuaded me was that I think the motorist has to be encouraged not to proceed any further than the turnaround. And the existence of parking further down may complicate or confuse that issue. And Tim had discussed how there was proposed to be two signs at the turnaround or in the vicinity of the turnaround that said, "No parking beyond this point, turn here." And to have other parking spots available below that point was both inconsistent with that declaration and be impossible to police. But the other is that if someone were parked down there, it does nothing but encourage folks. So my hope is that, and I agree with Deb, that this is an evolutionary process. We're going to see how it works. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to have to make other changes. And I want to hear more about that. I've visited the site several times. And certainly, in different types of weather, you never know what's going to happen down there. But I intend to vote in favor of the program as it stands right now. But I do not think we should think this is cut in stone. This needs to be a flexible approach, and we need to look at other safety factors there as well.
A question regarding the most recent correspondence, Tim. It looks like there's the action to modify the parking restrictions. Will this allow for additional parking spaces between those signs than what's there right now, or will it shrink it? I know that we have the signs on either side of the street before you get to the curb, before you get to the turnaround, and then on the, I believe it's the east side of the street, there's you can park between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jason, you're right. The existing signage is confusing, though. It does have some time constraints on there and permitted parking and things. Overall, it probably reduces the parking by a little bit. There was suggestion at one point regarding the concrete curbing that's in place that we may be able to add some parking if that were to be removed. We haven't budgeted for that. There's some other things that can be considered in the future. So I would think that it does have a reduction effect if you wanted to empirically have an answer, yeah.
But I mean, I also concur that we reviewed this back in, I think it was 2012, 2013, that we were reviewing changes, and we did not go with the changes back then. And this has been sort of an organic process moving forward. In fact, I remember going back out there, I believe it was the fall of 2013. I think Louise and I took a field trip over there on a cold, gloomy fall day. and took a look around. Well, we were still reviewing it, I think, on the committee level. Now here it is 2016, and I think if we're going to see what type of solutions are going to alleviate some of the issues down there, that we should try something with a complete open mind, saying that if this does not work, we're going to bring it back to the table, and we're going to consider other alternatives that may be available out there.
Well, the question is, how long are you going to wait to see if it works or not? If you're going to wait, another 2 years. The thing that bothers me most about this is the way the people on the street are at each other. And I think if we can get, especially if there's family involved, and I think that is making this even harder. It's harder for us to decide. It's harder for you guys to adjust your thinking about it too, and to give in a little bit and to give in a little bit. And it's putting us in the middle, sort of. And
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. But I think that if Deb thinks that she needs the 2 spaces in front of her house because she has a lot of people that come over and so forth, and there won't be any spaces for them to be able to park if she doesn't have it in front of her house. That's an important thing for me. And on the other hand, if having those 2 spaces, having people park in those 2 spaces, gives the signal to others who come by when they're parked there that they can go further down. I'm still thinking about it until the vote.
Tim or Mark, let me ask either one of you, what is the required spacing between no parking signs for an area to be enforceable as no parking? How many feet between signs?
Bill, I'd have to check the traffic control manual, but you have to post the endpoints and then the intermediate, there's an intermediate, and I think because of the distance we have here, we only need one intermediate sign, between the endpoints. But I'd have to, if you want exact footage, I would have to check that.
If you can, as long as we're still, unless Mark.
I don't have it. The only thing I would say now, and I said it 2 years ago, you're going to decide on the law. We're going to have to decide on the enforcement aspect of it. I would ask for clarity.
Yeah.
And not only clarity from the sign, a standpoint of the sign, I would also ask for a clarity from a standpoint of pavement markings. So there is no dispute as to where it starts and what is not. And
How, you mentioned pavement markings. What does a pavement marking get you that the sign position itself doesn't already get you?
It takes, as I mentioned the other day, it takes the discretion away from the police officer. You can point to where the no parking zone starts. It's not open to interpretation, and it's an enforceable type.
So a line on the pavement?
In this particular neighborhood, in this particular area, I believe would add clarity, and from the purposes of clearly defining where the demarcation is for no parking. I mentioned it 2 years ago. I think that would be key here. Is it necessary? No, but I would say in this particular situation, the added step would be beneficial, and it would take our discretion out of it. It would give us clarity.
When you look at the signs,
Can you take a look? Do you think it's something you can find? If that's something you can find quickly, I think that would be helpful.
I mean, when you look at the number of signs that are being discussed, it's sign pollution, and it's confusing to me, and I think that is not going to help the situation.
Well, okay. I would just say what's there now is confusing. We know that. The police have told us it's confusing. The town
This
attorney
doesn't
has
make it
told us
any
it's
easier, I
confusing.
don't
So what we know is that the status quo is confusing. The proposed change would address that. Mark would like to see it with pavement lines, but.
As I said, we discussed this at length at the Public Works Committee and looked at this thing 360 degrees. And you can't really answer everybody's concerns, something like this, but we decided to come to the council to recommend that we're going to try this. And obviously, it's not cast, as you said, in stone or cut in stone, but we've got to try this. Right now, it's too confusing, and it's very difficult to enforce by our police. So here again, the proposal is that we go forward with this change, and we're willing to try it and for effectiveness, and give it a fair trial in terms of time and testing.
The law itself only addresses the actual no parking sign. But I think we all agree, and consensus has been challenging to find on this matter. I talked at one of the meetings. Obviously, we had one consensus, and that was that the neighborhood did not want an off-street parking lot, and we have agreed to respect that desire from the neighborhood. I think we've also heard that there should be clear signage of directing people to use the turnaround, and although that's not something that we can put in the law itself, that is, again, that's something that we all agree. We want as many people as possible. If they get down that far, we want people to use the turnaround, to the extent that that means some work maybe to, improve the turnaround to make sure it doesn't sort of narrow and the nature of the nature park sort of squeeze it in. We may need to do that. Issues of walking in the street and such is a little tougher. That's not something that we legislate in the town code, and we certainly hope that people will use that park and any park in a wise manner. Now, the one thing that Blair, you mentioned in your most recent communication was a question about the speed limit, because apparently the speed limit on Glen Road is still 30 miles an hour and has never been reduced, as many streets in Brighton have been reduced to 25. State law prohibits us on a public street from going below 25. But if in fact Glen Road is not currently on our list of 25-mile-an-hour streets, I think we just found our next consensus, because I think we would all agree that even 25 miles an hour is faster than we would like to see on that street. Someone driving 25 on Glen Road is going to feel and look like probably a speed demon. But if that's and it is the lowest speed we can legally mark, I would ask that we do take a look, and if in fact we have not lowered the speed limit on Glen Road to 25 miles an hour, that we do so quickly.
Bill, I have a question. Why are there 4 different resolutions here?
What you might have, 4 different resolutions. There is, there was a I think what you have is the fact that because the public hearing continued on, we had draft resolutions at earlier points in time. So those are resolutions that would have been on May 11th, on May 25th. And
which one are we voting?
We're going to be acting on the one that's dated for June 8th, which is the first one. Tim, what'd you learn?
Bill, from what I could glean this evening, the 200 feet between signs.
That's what I thought.
And based upon what we have here, to be, if you want to call it conservatively, on the safe side for enforcement, we do have intermediate signs. So I think,
so you'd have one, you still believe it would be one intermediate sign?
One at each end and then one in the middle.
Intermediate. Okay.
Will suffice.
Thank you. That was a question that had come up, and
Yeah, and it's a fair question, it's a reasonable question. And
sure
obviously,
is.
we wanted to make sure it was enforceable. But different signs have different, distance, like the 25-mile-an-hour speed limits have different linear posting.
We were just talking
requirements,
about
right?
that. I don't know whether you heard us coming in.
No.
Blair, in his communication, raised the issue, and apparently Glen Road we have not reduced. I knew either
Yeah, just-
Dan or Ken was looking
Yeah,
that
no, I
up.
checked the
So I'm going
town
to
code.
encourage that at the next Public Works Committee meeting, we take up what I'll treat as Blair's request, that we look at a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in the place, and I'll just preemptively say that would be something I would support.
Even a street such as that, which is different than most streets, you cannot go below that?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
In fact, I know that.
Private streets, for example, like if you go into Brickstone, you'll see a lower speed limit on something that looks like a speed limit sign, but that's a private street where they have the ability to.
It's sort of a private street.
And as you will remember, the town's been supportive of having the state pass some enabling legislation so that we could go 25 miles an hour townwide.
Yep.
Yet that hasn't happened yet, and that would eliminate the need for all the intermediate signage, which is.
Exactly.
Which to us, not only is a budgetary consideration when we have to make up those, because you have to post it linear, which means every so often, but it's also redundant because people do not necessarily like those in front of their homes.
Sure.
So Tim, the diagram here regarding the signage is not conclusive. This is just an example of how it might be posted if we
Well,
have to
that
add
is-
additional signs and such.
That is how it will be posted, Chris, except that, when out in the field, it will be exactly according to the letter.
What these show, they do show one intermediate sign.
Yep.
They show the endpoint signs, and then they show one intermediate sign. It may not be drawn to scale, but in that stretch of the road, as you go down to the park, it shows,
After the turnaround?
yeah.
Am I not looking at the right? Yeah, I'm seeing two signs on either side of the street.
You've got that no parking beyond this point on public, use public turnaround.
That's the
But
blue
right at
sign.
that point, you have a no parking sign going down. You have an intermediate sign, I'm looking on the left side now, and then an end point, no parking sign pointing in one direction. Jim, maybe you can show them where I'm meaning. And on the right, you have the same, again, I'll use left and right because of the pieces of paper.
Either side of the street.
You have an endpoint sign, an intermediate sign, and another endpoint sign pointing in the other direction.
You're starting from the
Yeah.
top of the street.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we're going down.
I'm at the park end now.
Yeah.
That's considered the intermediate sign next to.
Correct. The
those
one
red,
that has
red,
the
blue.
arrow, the
That
one that
second
has
red
the
one is
arrow
considered the
pointing in
intermediate?
both,
Okay.
yeah, the arrow pointing in both
I was
directions.
assuming you were talking about putting a third one in here.
Nope.
No.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this matter? We do have a,
Looking at the diagram of signs, it looks like on the west side of the street, between the two black dots where the parking is allowed, I'm confused by the arrows, because it looks like between the two black dots where the arrows are, unless I have a different diagram, are the arrows pointing in the right direction on those signs?
Jason, you have to orient yourself to as you're looking, if you're on the street looking at that, not as we're looking at it here from.
Okay.
yeah.
So.
I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, so you have to get back there, and then, yes, that is where that will logically be.
Because they'll be turned around?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, now I get it, okay.
We have a motion and a second to approve this local law. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
No.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Thank you all for all the work that you've done and the insights that you've given us all. I am persuaded, I guess, my thinking is probably similar to where Blair is at this point. I really, and maybe it's the lawyer in me, I have a hard time giving people a sign that says you can't park any farther down and then giving them a sign that says, yes, you can park here after all. I do think that will be confusing. I do think that that will not help us solve the problem of too many cars going down past the turnaround and turning around in your driveways, coming out at rates of speed, not always caring about people that are walking in the street. This will not solve all the safety problems. I don't pretend that it will. I do believe that it will improve safety conditions down there because I do believe it will reduce the number of cars that are mistakenly going down there. And when a driver goes down a street mistakenly, I think there's a change in their attitude and their change in the way that they drive all too often. And it's those drivers that don't want to be there that may be some of our biggest risks. What is in place now we know does not work. It is confusing. Chris, it's not, I agree with you, we should not look at this as being cast in concrete, but at the same time, this is not an exercise I think we should be going through every year or every 2 years.
Yep.
I had hoped we would have a total consensus, but I understand that we don't. And we may not ever, and that's okay. And I know you will all, you are neighbors, you are friends. Thank goodness for that. So recognizing that this is an imperfect solution, I think it's an improved solution, so I vote aye. Matters of the supervisor, we have, and so just to make it clear, the local law has been approved by a 4-1 vote. Matters of the supervisor, we have the expense and revenue report for the month ending May 31st. Can I have a motion to receive and file that report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We will, at the end of June, have Suzanne present the second quarter report. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And the only other thing, I announced a whole bunch of events, but I just want to show this off because this is a real nice, yeah, thank you. We got it in stereo here.
Had it in my car and brought it back in.
Yeah.
This month's Talk of the Town and Topics, which is the official publication of the New York State Association of Towns. Their cover story is entitled Where the Sidewalk Begins. And it says, take cues from the town of Brighton to promote more physical activity in your town. And this cover story is about the green infrastructure project along Monroe Avenue. Talks about not only, as we've been saying all along, the initial rationale of this project is stormwater, and it will improve stormwater performance. But it also makes Monroe Avenue a more walkable place. Talks about removing sidewalks where we can back from the street, as we've done on the school property. The fact that we have porous sidewalks, even some porous asphalt down by the Charbroil, which I parked on just this morning. So Tom Robinson from Barton and LeJudas, our consultant on this project, wrote this article. So I want the community to see that this green infrastructure project, which is still ongoing this summer, and will probably actually finish up next construction season, is getting statewide attention. So kudos to everybody involved in that.
Did I hear you, did you read the subhead here?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Yep. So that's all I have. Matters of the attorney.
I have nothing.
Matters of the town clerk.
I have nothing tonight.
Matters of the board.
Nothing further.
Good.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person?
So moved.
Second.
And actually, can we add matters of litigation?
And matters of litigation. Will you accept that modification, both of you?
Yes.
Okay. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Thank you all for being here tonight. Our next town board meeting is the 22nd of June. Have a good night. See you then.